Algebra 2, Lesson 5, Word Problems, Fractional Parts of a Number. We'll be starting at Practice A. Alright, and Practice A tells us that the sum of negative 4 and 5 times the number is multiplied by 3. The result is 212 less than 7 times the number. What is the number? The trick is to take these problems one piece at a time. They tell us the sum of. When we see the sum, we should know that we're dealing with an addition problem, and there's at least two players. We've got the sum of negative 4 and 5. Alright, so they tell us exactly how many with that and. So we've got the sum of negative 4 and 5, 5 times a number. So how do I write down an addition problem using negative 4 and 5 times a number? Well, negative 4 is really easy. Just put negative 4, put a plus sign, and then how do I write 5 times a number? Well, if we don't know the number, we're just going to use a letter. We can use x or n. For this problem, I'll go ahead and use x. So negative 4 and 5 times a number. That is the sum of negative 4 and 5 times a number. Next, let's go to the next bit of the problem. It says that is multiplied by 3. Now, what is multiplied by 3? Well, this is a prepositional phrase, so it can't be that. The main subject, the sum. So the sum is multiplied by 3. How can I multiply that entire sum by 3? Well, I'm going to use parentheses and distributive property. So parentheses say we have to do this first, so that sum is being multiplied by 3. Now, they tell us the result is 212 less. Alright, well, let's start with this. The result is. That is a really big clue that we just need to write our equal sign. So words like was, the result is, or is equal to means we put our equal sign down. So we've got that. So it equals what? 212 less. So 212 less means we're going to subtract 212. That's kind of confusing because they put it at the front, but you normally subtract to the rear. So I'll go ahead and give myself some space and just put minus 212. Hopefully that'll be enough space. Alright, so whatever it is going to have 212 taken away from it. So the result is 212 less than 7 times the number. Okay, so it's 212 less than 7 times the number. All we have to do there is just write 7x, and I gave myself too much space. It's just 7x minus 212. I can erase that. So now that I've got my equation, all I have to do is solve and find out what the number is. I'll use distributive property here. That's negative 12. That's 15x. From here, we're just going to move everything, all the x's on one side, all the whole numbers on the other side. I'll move the 12 to the right and the 7x to the left. Those cancel. Those cancel. This becomes 8x. That becomes negative 200. So if 8x equals negative 200, we just divide by the coefficient of 8. This will reduce down. I don't know my 8 times tables all the way up to 200, so let's just divide by 2. If I divide each one by 2, I get 100 over 4. That's easier to figure out. I know there's 4 quarters in a dollar, so I know that can become 25 over 1, and then don't forget this negative. So x is equal to negative 25. Alright, next we're going to go to 5.4. 5.4 is one of our fraction of a number problems. It says 1/5 of the clowns had red noses. If 30 clowns had red noses, how many clowns were there in all? So what we need to memorize is this equation right here. Fraction times of equals is. So I'll go ahead and write that at the top. F times of equals is. Now, in this equation, the fraction is 1/5 of the clowns had red noses. I don't want to know how many clowns had red noses, though. So in these problems, you want to look at the fraction you're given. They say 1/5 of the clowns had red noses. And then they ask how many clowns were there in all. So what I can do here is I'll fill this equation n, and the fraction is going to be 1/5. 1/5 times of is going to equal is. Now the is going to be the number of clowns that fulfill that fraction. So 1/5 had red noses, and they tell us that 30 had red noses. So 30 is the is. So whatever value fulfills this fraction of red noses is going to be your is number. So if 30 clowns have red noses and the fraction is in red noses, then when I go to my equation, 1/5 times of is going to equal 30. I can rewrite this as an equation replacing of with an unknown. We'll make it C for clowns. So 1/5 times clowns equals 30. From here, all I have to do is solve for C by multiplying by the reciprocal of 5/1. That will cancel, so then I get clowns is equal to 30 times 5, which is 150. Okay, so we have to use a little bit of logic in this one as far as how the fraction relates to the problem, and you'll see our answer is correct there. Last one, we're going to do another one of these fraction problems just so you can get a better feel for them, because they are a little difficult. 3/8 of the pieces unloaded were Victorian. If 1,624 pieces were unloaded, how many were not Victorian? Okay, so this one's a little bit tricky in that they give us a fraction, but what they're asking for cannot be fulfilled by the of or the total number. So they say 3/8 were Victorian. They want to know how many were not Victorian. So if 3/8 of the pieces unloaded were Victorian, what fraction were not Victorian? Well, using our logic, we would know that that fraction of not Victorian would be 5/8, the remainder of the whole. So if 5/8 were not Victorian, then following our equation, fraction times of equals is, then we know that 5/8 times our of value is going to be our is. Now the is value of, now they don't give us our is value, but they do give us the total. They tell us that 1,624 pieces were unloaded. So then we get 5/8 times 1,624/1 is going to equal our is number, or how many are not Victorian. From here we just have to multiply. It looks like this is divisible by 8 though, so I can cross cancel that to 1. 8 goes into 16 2 times, and then 8 would not go into 2, but it goes into 24 3 times. So then we get 203/1 times 5. 5 times 203, 15, 1, 6, and 10. 1,065 pieces were not Victorian.